what really our mission is, because we have that criteria, okay? And that is really what we have to do. Now, another question that I'm actually just talking about some of the questions that have been asked here without reading them out. Another aspect, brothers and sisters, is if we recognize that Britain, England is our home, what does that mean? You know, one of the very important topics that we have to think about and we have to address ourselves is to know the difference between culture and religion. It's very important, because culture is specific. Culture is specific to a certain time and to a certain place. Culture can mean many different things, but in many ways it just really is just what people do. You know, what people do, what people believe, their habits, their customs, their manners. That's what we call culture. But in many cases, culture is a human attempt to develop a set of rules that allows them to exist in an optimal way in a particular environment. For example, the culture of the Eskimo has developed in order to maximize their ability to survive and be productive in that very harsh environment. The culture of the Bedouin, similarly, is based around survival strategies. So in certain environments, for example, you need a very clear divide between what men do and women do. This is the job of the man, this is the job of the woman, because if we don't have those clear rules and we don't have those clear things put in place, then the whole nature of the environment in which we live will mean that we will not survive. The man will need to go and, I don't know, do this and do that, and the woman needs to be in this situation doing that, because if we don't have those clear things in that environment, the kids will suffer, we will die, we will not have enough food, so on and so forth. Do you understand? So many aspects of culture are linked to that. Even you could say the pagan Arabs, and I'm not saying it makes it right, but the pagan Arabs, burying their daughters alive. I mean, this was not just, yes, of course it was from Shaitan. Shaitan misguided them. But there was an environment that, in a sense, produced that, because they were so poor and life was so hard. And you had all these raids taking place, and then imagine there's a raid and your daughter's kidnapped and she's made a slave, and it's all this issue of dishonor and so on and so forth. So you can see how this culture develops of female infanticide. It's evil, it's wrong, but you can see how it's a product of the environment. Now that's very important. If you begin to understand that, brothers and sisters, then you will also begin to understand how dangerous it is to import your culture to Britain, because it doesn't belong here. Your culture belonged in a different land and a different environment and a different context. It's not going to work here because it wasn't developed in this environment. In fact, if you bring your culture here, inevitably you're going to have a clash with the prevalent culture, and your children who are being brought up in the prevalent culture, and by and large it's not going to work. And I could give many examples, and again, the ones I'm familiar with most often are marriages. The whole issue of marrying in the family, this is a common culture. Marry my cousin. You marry your daughter to your cousin, and this and that. And there was a reason for that in a particular time, in a particular place. There are probably lots of reasons we could say it worked and there was a benefit behind it. But if we try to force our children into this system, let's remember, there's lots of reasons that's not going to work. Number one, our kids don't like it. That's not the culture that exists here. Secondly, even if you try to implement that system here, you've got problems, because half the family is not here with you. And what allowed that system to work was the fact that you were a close-knit family, each part of the family looking after the other, everyone making sure that things worked well. But with half the family here and half the family there, you marry your daughter to the cousin from over there. First of all, maybe he's illiterate. He and your daughter's got a degree. Is that going to work? It's not, because believe me, I could give you a list as long as my 2 arms of cases I have to deal with, and people being beaten up, and also women being beaten up because, you know, that's the only way the man can make himself feel like a man. Because, you know, his wife has got a degree, and what can he do? Nothing. He can't do anything. Now normally, what would happen is you tell your brother, your son's behaving like this, and he'd come and sort his son out straight away. You treat my niece like that, whack whack, you know, be all sorted out. But he's over in another 3,000 miles away. How's he going to deal with it? He can't. You mean the structures that allow this thing to work have broken down? But you think, maybe even in a deluded way, this is religion. It's not Islam. It's not Islam. Nothing to do with Islam. It's not haram, it's not halal, it's fine. You can do it or not do it. It's not the religion, it's your culture. But if you try to enforce that culture here, it has many potential negative consequences. So I'm just giving one example, but if we go on to one of the things I never really got. You know, when we build a mosque, not we generally, certainly not this one, alhamdulillah, but you know, when we build a mosque, why does it look like it's been teleported from India? You know, with all the things and the, you know, the whatever. Why? Why? I mean, it looks alien. And you know, if you look, and you know, when a brother wears a thobe and a hat and they say, mashallah brother, sunnah. It's not sunnah. There's nothing sunnah about it. It's not sunnah. There are very few scholars who said that the dress of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is sunnah. There are things the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam did because that's what they did in that time. It's not the Prophet drank water. Is it sunnah to drink water? Is it? It's not. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam rode on a camel. Yeah? Is it sunnah? MashaAllah, Abdul Raheem came on a camel. MashaAllah, sunnah. Yeah? Is it? No, there are very few scholars who say that the worldly actions of the Prophet are sunnah. Yes, the Prophet did them, but that's what they rode in that time, and that's what they ate in that time. And those were the habits and the customs, and that was the dress of that time. You could argue more strongly that the sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to dress the way